Guys, Stealth here. A couple days ago, one of you asked me if I could do a French support deck for Wargame. I don't think this deck is viable, like, at all, because you don't really have the required support units. I don't think I can fill the support slots, even if I wanted to. But I'm just gonna build it and see if it may turn out to be viable. As you can see, we got a massive amount of points right here in logistics, and we're gonna be able to use a lot of those. Now, unfortunately, none of our command infantry is going to be able to be air mobile, but for the best mobility, I'm going to go with the VAB. I may have to change that back to the VLRA, but I really don't want to. And that's possibly going to be an issue later on, as I'm going to bring in the infantry. Alright, let's go with a FOB. Let's go with logistics helos. Let's go with logistics VLRAs. Now, as far as infantry goes, we don't really have a lot of choice. But I gotta say, I got more choice than I'd expected. I'm gonna go with a couple of Puma 330H Pirates with Legion 90s. Let's go with 2 veterans of those. Actually, that might be a bit low. 14 infantry should be enough. We're gonna go, of course, with Mistrals. I'm going to go with 2 cards of hard or hardened. You can bring reservists. I just wouldn't really recommend it. I never play with these guys. I gotta say though, for reserve infantry, their accuracy with their anti-tank weapon is actually not bad. I think that the base riflemen have an even worse hit ratio of only 30%. Still, unless you really want to spam stuff, and that's not my playstyle, you can go for the rookies. I'm not gonna go there though. Other options that I get are the Milan F3. I think the Milan F2 would be enough. I'm gonna take these guys in the VAB. I'm gonna go with, let's see, 7 at hardened. Now that doesn't give me a lot of infantry, but I'm not really going to be pushing anywhere with this support deck anyway. Support deck, as the name states, is there to support teammates, so do not go and take this deck into a 1v1 or a 2v2, as you're going to be terribly outflanked and outmaneuvered. The one logical, if you want to call it logic, the one viable situation I would consider this one is a 10v10. If you have decent teammates which can carry you. If you see too many support decks, just don't use this deck, because it's not going to get you anywhere. Now, as for the support section itself, this is where we're going to have to score most of the points. So I'm going to go with a couple of Roland 3s in order to deal with anti-air. I'm going to go with 2 veterans there. Also going to get in 2 close-range Crotals at veteran. At this point, the support bonus, or the port veterancy bonus, does come in handy, because now these things have a really high accuracy. Of course, the Caesar has to be in here. I'm going to go with 2 of those. This means we got AA, as in longer range anti-airplane AA. We got anti-helo AA. I don't really have any gun-based AA, but you don't always need to have those, although Crotals run out of ammo really quickly. They only carry 4 rounds. These guys don't really need that much micromanagement. I'm considering bringing either the VAB or the AMX-13. They got pretty similar stats, except that the AMX has a bit more range, is radar guided, and is more accurate. And it carries 1200 rounds versus only 600 rounds. So, in order to deal with a bit more helicopters, we're going to go with 10 veteran AMX-13s. Actually, no, I'm going to spam these things. Why not? That leaves me with the capacity to bring in some mortars. Now, that's going to be the VAP or the VPM 120. Good range, very high HE because they're firing 120mm howitzer. The thing is that you don't really get a lot of shells. You only get 54 shells. But the second mortar that you can pick from is the AML 6020, which only has 2 HE. That's not really going to get you anywhere. So we're going to take the VPM 120. I can also bring in AMX AUF-1s. I don't think I really need those though. I think 2 Caesars would be enough to support a lot of troop movement. And these things are a lot faster to acquire targets than the AMXs are. I think that, yeah, they even got a better range of fire, rate of fire. The thing is that these carry 36 rounds, whereas these only carry 18 rounds. But they have a lower rate of fire, a lower range, a less accuracy, as in more dispersion. I'm talking about the AMX. Same HE. The only thing is that they're a bit armored, but just keep your Caesars moving and they should be fine. Considering bringing in the LRM, I just don't really use MLRS that often. And the reason for that is that I don't think that they really suit my playstyle. That may mean that they do suit your playstyle, but I prefer very, very accurate artillery strikes. So I'm not going to bring these, but I might come back here later and bring them anyway, because I still have a lot of points to go. Now the best tank we can bring is the MX-30B2. That means we do not have a tank with a stabilizer. This is an issue. This lack of stabilizer means that we cannot go on the offensive. Now, we're not going to do that anyway because it's a support deck. But you still want to have a bit of capacity of either rolling retreats or rolling advances. Now, yes, I know about the French and their, let's say, predilection for rolling retreats. But of course it's Wargame, and sometimes you just want to advance. That is still possible with the AMX-30B2, but the moment you come up against a tank that's anywhere halfway decent, that has something which has an AP power of higher than 7, which is virtually any tank, and an armor penetration or armor defense, so armor better than 12, this thing is not going to do much. So I'm not going to dedicate too many points here. I could go with the AMX-30B. Difference is 20% accuracy though, and that's significant. AMX-13 Harpon, not really a fan of these. Very, very low accuracy on the main gun. Very low accuracy on the HGMs. The one thing they got going for them is that their armor penetration on the HGM is remarkably high for a 25-point vehicle. Moving on to Recce. We do not have too many slots here. Unfortunately, we don't have access to the VBL Mistral. We do get the VBL itself, which is still a really good recon vehicle. So let's get one of those in. Thankfully, we have a helicopter here, but it's only the Pirate. I'm not sure why we cannot use the base 330H. That's a bit curious. Anyway, we're going to send in the Hussar 85. Let's take 5 of those. Gazelle cannon for active scouting. The one thing I don't like about the Gazelle, though... Well, actually, we got the Alouette. Yeah. The one thing I don't like about the Gazelle is that the Gazelle it only has good optics. And what I would like out of a scouting helicopter is very good optics. The downside is that this thing only moves at 210 kph, which makes it one of the slowest helicopters in the game. Still... I think that with the Alouette you have a slightly better chance of spotting targets. Also going to bring the 1390. If you've seen my earlier deck reviews, you know what I think of this tank. It is pretty fast, good optics, small size, medium stealth, and it carries pretty much a good gun. It's not great. It only has 30% accuracy. It does have 8 armor penetration, but it fires heat rounds, so it's always going to do some damage. And with the rate of fire, you can suppress targets pretty fast. Other than that, they're only 20 points, so why not? Moving on to vehicles, we're definitely going to take the ERC 90. Now, if you're playing Armored Warfare lately, you may have seen this vehicle, as it is a premium vehicle in Armored Warfare, except that there it is, I believe, in 2 versions. You got both the ERC 90, wheeled and tracked. Anyway. The ERC-90, medium sort of tank destroyer, fire support vehicle. Armor penetration really isn't that good for a tank destroyer. Fires kinetic rounds, so that 11 armor penetration can go up a bit higher. Accuracy is decent at 45%. Ground range is just terrible, so I'm not going to use this one. I'm considering bringing an AMX-10 as a sort of all-rounder, because we have nothing in the deck that has an autocannon. And that's the one reason that I would consider bringing this thing in. The AMX-10 Hot, of course, has better HGMs with the Hot 1 versus the Milan. But the main difference is it doesn't have an autocannon. And that's the thing that I do want to get. Now, as far as the quick strike capabilities go, we can go for the Mephisto, which carries the Hot 1, or the Milan 2. The problem is, they are both pretty inaccurate at 40% accuracy. And the range on the Milan 2 is even worse at only 2450. On the other hand, if this thing hits and it kills something, you really only need to kill one target, maybe two. And you got enough points to rectify or to justify using this thing. Mephisto is almost as fast. It is amphibious, which could be an advantage, although in 10v10 maps, I don't really think that I need a amphibious vehicle that much. So, compared to the AMX Hot, and you're going to see that it has this same missile. It's just a different platform. The AMX carries a bit more armor, is amphibious but a bit slower, has a lot less off-road speed at only 65 versus 90, and suffers a significant penalty to the autonomy when compared to the Mephisto. I'm gonna go with the Mephisto, basically because I have way too many points still available. Helicopters, oh god. Just Cassiopes? We don't even get Gazelles? Well, alright then. See, this is why I think that this deck is just completely unviable. It's just unrealistic using this thing. Which is going to make it all the more fun if you actually do pull it off. Now, thank God we do get access to good fighters. So, being a support unit, or a support deck, I'm going to go with 2 Rafales to make sure that the skies are clear. And this deck, with a lot of support units, a lot of AA support units, basically focused as a sort of AA deck. Super Etendar SEMs to make sure we can snipe some high point tanks and be of value to the team that way. Unfortunately, we only got the Jaguar A as a seaplane. These things aren't terrible, but they're not ideal. The range on that missile is not as great as I would like it to be. Their ECM is 30%, which is okay. For a seaplane, I would expect a bit more though. So let's take one of those, maximize that chance to hit. Gives me 1 plane slot left. I don't really have a bomber yet, so I cannot contain larger outbreaks. I could go with the Mirage 5F, the Beluga in case of vehicles, but I think infantry is the bigger threat here. The problem, 10% ECM. Etendar IVM, also 10% IVM, except that this thing is a lot slower. You're going to be paying almost 1/3 of the price of the Mirage 5F, but it is almost a one-way plane because it's so slow, and it carries only 2 bombs instead of 8. So I'm going to go with the Mirage 5F, and this way I have sort of bomb truck. Okay, that still leaves me with 7 points. I'm going to go with a second fob. This is something that you don't really need in a 4v4 if you want to use it there, but in a 10v10 it can be useful. Especially if you're going to be firing a lot of those MLRS. Again, I don't use them, but adjust the deck as you see fit. I have currently only 4 command vehicles in here. I could go with an AMX-30B. They are pretty heavily armored. At least a lot better than the AMX PC, or than the VAB PC. Actually, why not? Look at the difference. I'm only looking at a 5-point price tag difference, but I get 6 armor instead of 1. And you do, of course, get a defensive weapon, but you don't really want to fire that because you're going to give yourself away. So, command tanks, 4 of those. Still leaves me with 5 points. I don't really think I need any more support units. You could go with the base Roland. The good thing about these is that they're not radar guided, so they can just snipe helicopters pretty well, but they shouldn't go after helicopters or after airplanes. They don't have the range for that, only 2250 or 2275. Filare Mistrals carry 8 missiles. If you compare this to the Roland, Roland has better range but inferior accuracy, carries more missiles, has a bit of armor, and is 10 points more expensive. Still, if I cannot hold in a 10v10 with all the AA that I have in here, then I'm terribly mis-microing my units. So no, I'm not going to go for more AA. Instead, considering picking another recon, because all the other tabs are pretty much maxed out except for the tanks, but come on, I'm not going to go in with the 30B or 30 even. This thing is just terrible. Infantry is maxed out. Okay, we're going to go with another VBL. We're going to spot and we're going to shoot it. So basically, a lot of spotters, and unfortunately we can only get one of these because they're a prototype. But you know what, screw it. If we're going fire support, we're going full fire support. This is going to be quite the investment. 4 of these AMX AUF-1s. If I can get all of these guns to land, or all of these shells to land at the same target at the same time, it's going to be very, very damaging. The thing is, they don't really have the range. They only have a range of 24 kilometers, rounded up. That could be a problem. Now, looking overall at this deck, again, it could work in a 10v10. Would I recommend it? Not really, because there are better choices. You have better alternatives for support, such as using a Commonwealth deck, which get access to multiple artillery types. You could go for a USA support deck and support with the ATACMS, the M196 Paladins. I think that would be more viable than this deck. Still, I'm just gonna go and give it a try, because it might just work. If you want to try it too, the link is in the description down below. Sorry, the deck code, of course, is in the description down below. Also in the description is how you can send in your decks and your gameplays. So if you have a great gameplay that you want me to show off in a video, send it to me through those links and I'll have a look at it. Okay, I hope that the French support deck will work for you. I'm not sure it's going to work for me, but we'll see about that. Hope you enjoyed the deck review, and I'll be seeing you next video.